And welcome to Honest to Goodness Atheists. This is Phil, and I'm sitting here with ExRev.
What's up, Phil?
Hi. So last week we began a series that we'd like to entitle Skeptics Welcomed. I guess maybe I don't know what we're calling it.
That's good.
I think in
Let's go that. Yeah.
I think in the first video I called it Honest to Goodness Atheists Go to Church.
And why not?
So I might just change it to Skeptics Welcomed. But so ExRev didn't go with me this morning because he had his fill. He was satisfied, or maybe he wasn't satisfied last week.
I had atheist church this morning. I had Fellowship of the Heathen. Of the heathens.
How
it was actually really good. We had quite a few people there, and we had a great conversation. We had a good conversation. So.
Awesome. I've been there before. It's an awesome group. So it's really fun. If you want to plug them, you can. If not, we can
Atheists, etc.
Yeah, Atheists.
And north side of Indianapolis and the suburbs. Carmel, Fishers, all that area. North side of Indy. So so
go
to meetup.com, atheists, etc. to look us up.
Yep, it's really easy to do, and I think they're a great group of people, and they've always been very welcoming to me, especially when I first came out as an atheist. They were very accepting and a lot of good conversations.
All are welcome.
They don't always just talk about religion; they're also talking about life.
Unless
talking
we
about other things.
Yeah. Really,
or the news.
That's exactly. We talk about the news. We talk about mostly like personal stuff. But we're always up for especially when new people come. We love to have new people because then that's when we get to talk about like our stories of how we. Again, all are welcome. You don't have to be an atheist to attend.
Right.
That's why we call ourselves atheists, etc. We understand that there's agnostic. There's
non-theists.
There's there are people that are spiritual but don't believe in God. Even if you're religious, like we don't care. We'll talk to you. As long as I think it's understood.
Proselytizing is a no-no.
Avert proselytizing. If you're just there gonna share a track with us, we're probably gonna tell you to go away. But if you want to have a discussion.
Right.
That's fine. We've had pastors and missionaries come out before, and we're going to have a one-on-one discussion with you because, we don't have a set topic or anything, but it's just a bunch of people sitting around the table having breakfast and coffee, and we usually last pretty well. So right now on Sunday meetups, Sunday mornings we're meeting at IU North, in their cafeteria.
Oh, cool.
Which is not your typical hospital cafeteria. Being that it's Carmel, they have a full service. You can get, pancakes, waffles. You can get anything you want there. Really, it's big cafeteria. It's like a hotel. I mean, it's just It's nice. Yeah, and it's Sunday morning, so no one's there. I mean, you get the occasional nurse or doctor wandering through, maybe. The occasional loved one that's, there overnight with, a patient or something, but it's
occasional man of the cloth.
Yeah. I haven't seen any.
Interesting.
But, because it's not really, it's not a religious, but they do have a chapel. I did actually wander down the hallway. There is a chapel there. I assume it'd be non-sectarian. Because it's IU.
Usually they have icons or they do one of two things. Usually in hospitals, they do not put any religious iconography, and they're just kind of general, peaceful. They have sometimes some stained windows to kind of evoke a certain feeling. But sometimes then they'll put icons of all kinds. They'll have a Star of David. They'll have a Muslim crescent and star. All that stuff. So
I spend some time in St. V's, and of course they have all their Catholic stuff, but
so there's that, and we can move on to the sermon that was delivered to us by the pastor this morning at this church.
So you were the faithful one, and
I was the faithful one.
I was done last week. I'm like, you can go back if you want, Phil, but I'm going to my meetup. Bravo to you to give him a second chance, because I pretty much knew in my mind, I knew where he was going to go.
Yeah. And
I think we both did.
And I kind of did that because I looked last night. I looked last night at what, or no, it was this morning even. I listened again because they post the sermon a couple days later.
Gotcha.
And so I re-listened to the very beginning of the sermon. And he basically confesses that the series really is about opening up a dialogue, which it's weird that a dialogue is happening with a preacher talking to you, not you actually talking back or having a discussion. I think he's wanting to elicit the dialogues and discussions. Fair enough.
Sure.
But
you probably didn't imagine us doing this show.
No. He probably they probably don't even know this exists. Hey, surprise!
People don't.
If you're part of that church we're talking about, and we haven't mentioned who you are, feel free to reach out to us. HonestToGoodnessAtheists@gmail.com. Yep. Or comment on the thing. So, but anyway, so yeah, he basically admitted that this is about opening up a dialogue about what's going on in culture today and modern society, and I'm thinking, oh. So you're not really opening up a dialogue to skeptics of religion or skeptics of theism. You're just opening up a dialogue to bicker about everything going on in society and how it's not how you want it to be. And yeah, this was kind of disingenuous. Like, skeptics of the church, of Christianity, of theism, they actually want you to explain the actual hard things about your religion. And I mean, we've mentioned several before. Of course, those are deleted by now, but we've mentioned several of them, like, if the problem of evil, of suffering. There's the problem of there's the problem of slavery in the Old Testament, and does God think slavery is okay? Like, there's so many different questions that real atheists and real skeptics have walked away from church or have stayed away from church, and have always been atheists, and they just don't buy it. And I've been hopeful he's going to make arguments for the existence of God.
We wanted hardcore apologetics.
We really wanted hardcore
We were hoping for William Lane Craig to show up.
Well, I don't know if I expected William Lane Craig. He's honestly probably one of the best apologists they have, and even then I'm just kind of like, ugh, yeah, you're still... He has some dishonesty to him because he's been corrected on so many times. Not as bad as Kent Hovind.
Very dishonest.
But I mean, when you admit you're not a cosmologist, but then yet you're going to go toe-to-toe with Sean Carroll, or you're going to go toe-to-toe with Lawrence Krauss, and tell them that, no, the person who wrote that theory actually believes this. And he's like, funny, I have a video of this same guy saying the exact opposite of you and saying, no, you don't know my theory. Not only do
I have the video, but I actually just got an email from him the other day because I actually have access to him. And yes, he said, no, he didn't mean what you just said. In fact, he just directly responded to you and shot you down. Yeah.
But wait, can your God do that about the Bible? Anyway.
But see, William Lane...
When's the last time your God did that about that?
William Lane Craig, in order to survive, doesn't need to be honest.
He doesn't.
He just needs to say, hey, I debated Sean Carroll.
Right.
I debated Lawrence Krauss, the top atheist. Come and see me. Well, all that stuff is above their head. And he was speaking, it's literal nonsense what he talks about.
Yeah. So that's what I've been expecting, and I now know that's not what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
So the topic today was supposed to be about success, and I think the little byline was when success doesn't satisfy. So really today we were talking about satisfaction, and immediately this morning when I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, before I even go in there, let me call out a few things. Let me say what I think he's going to do. And he did almost every one of them. Yeah. He did pretty much exactly what I was going to say, is that he even used there's a God-sized hole in our heart.
Yeah. I knew he was going to. I saw that on the.
And I mean, you can't really resist doing that, I suppose. But he brought up.
What else do they got?
Yeah, he brought up. He also brought up. It was really weird too, because he kind of brings up an intelligent design argument that because I'm not satisfied with things in this world, I must be designed for another world. Oh, so there's that going on too. So this is going to be different than last week's podcast because I, Phil, have actually gone to church. The heathen ExRev over here decided not to go with me, and did his good work with the other heathens.
I mean, but and I think we both know. I mean, we both grown up, so we know some
of the arguments they're gonna,
and we've given some of these arguments.
Yes,
I mean, I almost had a minor in apologetics, for God's sakes. And it didn't satisfy.
It didn't. Oh,
it didn't satisfy.
More on that.
No, let me. Before you get going here, let me just say this because I'm going to go on a little rant here. So this whole thing that Jesus satisfied. Let me tell you, there's nothing more unsatisfying than listening to a freaking preacher for an hour and never for him to get around to his actual point.
Right.
That's the most unsatisfying. You tell me you got the answers to life. Let me tell you, going to church and being unsatisfied time after time after time,
and you weren't satisfied last week.
Eventually makes you quit.
You weren't satisfied last week, were you?
I was very unsatisfied.
Oh my gosh! Wow, you were unsatisfied with it. Didn't Jesus say to the woman at the well, "People who drink of this well will drink and will thirst again, but people who drink of my well that I'm talking about, they will drink." And they will not.
And I wanted to know what he meant by that. And guess what? No one can tell me.
Right. Yeah. I kind of know what he meant, but it's obvious.
Yeah,
it's
demonstrably not true. But when we say no, yeah, it's like we all have like a cultural understanding of what Jesus meant by that.
Right.
In the sense that, he's it. Right. Well, that was before Paul. Well, Paul hadn't been around, so. Paul's answer to everything was Jesus.
Technically, the writing of that story happened after Paul, but anyway.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. But we'll just say, for argument's sake,
right,
that this happened, as Jesus went on. So yeah, the idea that God satisfies everything, and you'll never. Well, you know what the thing is no, I was always thirsty, and I wasn't getting quenched.
Yeah.
There's two more questions that I came up with than were being answered. Every time I got one question answered, another one would pop up. Nothing about Christianity was satisfying. In fact, it actually just got old.
Yeah.
Really old. And I was tired of the cliches and cliches and cliches, and just like the whole thing, like what they said. Oh, you got a God-shaped hole in your heart. Well, you know what? I got a donut-shaped hole in my heart. I'm going to go get a donut.
But God's already in my heart, so why is there still a hole, right? So he's starting off this whole thing with some things we agree with. Again, I like to highlight the things we agree. He says society has progressed amazingly.
Amazingly without Jesus.
Oh,
sorry. Go on.
With the printing press, I mean, he's going all the way back to the printing press. Antibiotics. That's a bit of a jump from the printing press to antibiotics, but the telephone, electricity. He mentions cars. He ends up mentioning the internet. That he was one of seven. He was the seventh person in whatever community he was in down in Kentucky or whatever to get the internet. Which, I mean, some people could still be claiming that today, but I
thought you were going to say he was an early adopter. Claimed to invent it.
No. He was an early adopter, apparently, though.
Oh, yeah.
For the public internet. So he's got all of that going, and he's got a quote from Bill Gates saying, "You would rather be born today than any other time." I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was nodding my head, yes, like absolutely I would. I mean, back before the polio vaccine, absolutely, I'd rather be born today than any other time. And I'd rather, there's also a white privilege to that, because you cannot say so if you're a black person. you always, today is always definitely the best time to be born as a black person, because 60 years ago, segregation.
Yeah.
Jim Crow laws. 100 years before that, slavery. Yeah. I mean, you can't go back in time as a black person and be told, "Oh, yes, Mr. So-and-so, your table is right here." As a white person, you can. They'll be like, "Oh, yeah, we have a table waiting for you."
Although, I will say this, though. The way vaccines work, the polio vaccine, even if part of the population doesn't get it, just people having it and you don't get it, you still benefit a little bit.
There's a critical mass, right, to it, where if you get enough people vaccinated, people start dying out that carry it. But what you end up getting, though, is diseases start dying out and people can't get it as much because there's a critical mass of people. But what you'll have is communities, entire communities that are starting to not vaccinate. And then those communities start getting mumps and whatever have you. And then, you get this kid who just got a scratch on his head and got tetanus. And it cost his parents $800,000 in the hospital. 52 days the kid stayed in hospital. Jeez. Recovering from that. And they said, we didn't vaccinate because, that's bad. And, that's our freedom. It's like, yeah, it's $800,000. Meanwhile, your kid almost died.
Yeah, frankly, they should be charged with. I'm sorry.
They should be charged with neglect. But then the doctor was like, okay, so we're giving him this first round of tetanus shot. He needs to come back for his second round. They're like, we're declining to give him a second round. You've already been through $800,000 of a mistake that your kid died for a mistake you made long time ago. And now you're making the same mistake again. You deserve to have your kids taken away. You deserve to go to prison for neglect. You are causing society actual harm. So that was terrible. I'm not satisfied with that with that situation. But you'd rather be born today than any time. And you know what? In 20 years, they'll be saying the same thing. We'd rather be born today than we were yesterday. And the pastor goes on to say, despite all the terrible things going on right now, like gay marriage. He did not bring up gay marriage. But you have to imagine there's some underpinnings here.
He implied it.
There's some implied,
last week it was 10 years.
Yeah. All this suffering.
You were happier 10 years ago.
Yeah. All this suffering, all these complaints that people have, all of this blah, 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 that society's going through, and people will prefer to be born, 10, 20 years from now. Like, yeah, I would. Let's see. And he goes on. He said, he said, despite everything we have going on in society, and I'm like, yeah, like freedom? Because that seems to be what the church likes to attack, and that was our topic for last week. He said there's a problem with that. Despite our success, depression and suicide is rampant. And I'm like, okay, it's a citation needed for that. And also, what are the actual noted contributing causes to suicide and depression? Is it just simply that someone's not satisfied with life? Or is that conditions have changed since times where suicide and depression are lower? Some paradigm or condition has changed to upset this circumstance, and this is going on. So it's a problem. It's a problem that is arising. It's not necessarily a problem that's arising because people are like pursuing success. No one is arguing we are happier. In America, right? Yeah, we're not. In Europe, they are. In Europe, people are happier than in America.
That's true.
That is demonstrably true. That is actually studied, documented, and the studies actually say the reason why Americans are less happy is because we work too much. We've been working longer hours, and we've been having less relationships with people because we don't have time to have relationships with people. And when you have single mothers and single fathers or just impoverished families where the mom and dad have to work 2 shifts just to feed the family, a quote unquote living wage in Indiana for a single mother with a child is like $23 an hour. That's how much she has to make for a 40-hour week to get enough to feed herself, feed her child, get her child health care, child care, health care, all of that stuff, housing. That's how much she has to have just to have a basic life with her child. That's taking care of all the needs. And, I don't mean to go on to like a living wage thing here, but, when you have that situation and Indiana's minimum wage is $7.75, I think it is. That is a huge gap. That is a huge gap. For a single adult in Indiana, it's like $11 an hour-ish is your stuff. And that's an MIT lab calculator I'm getting that from, by the way.
So it's just, I was just looking up the happiest, places on Earth.
I think it's like Sweden or Switzerland or something like that.
The
or
last
Denmark.
year it was, well, they do it every year.
Yeah.
So last year it was Finland was the top.
Finland. That's
so
right.
it's you're right. It's Finland, Switzerland, Norway, Denmark. It's all those Nordic
people
countries.
who have decriminalized marijuana and drugs.
Yeah, and also.
And the Swiss still has their weapons. They still have. Everyone has weapons.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though because the Swiss. I was looking that up because it's a common trope. Oh my God, they all have weapons. Well, yeah, but guess what? They all have They're all. Every man is that goes through their National Guard.
Right.
So they have them. So they're all trained on it.
Right.
Also, they're not allowed to carry them in public.
Right.
There's certain days they can bring them out to the range. They have like a national firing range, range day.
There's events, yeah.
But they're mostly locked away and kept safe. And they don't have a huge violence problem.
They're also less religious.
They're also less religious,
especially fundamentalists.
They're actually the most atheistic countries in the world,
and yet they're the happiest. And they are the less violent.
And get this, and to your point, they also have some pretty high minimum wage, which is about $20 an hour. Yeah, if you're working at McDonald's, and get this, McDonald's doesn't cost that much more over there than it does here. Yet, yeah, guess what? The guy at McDonald's is going to get a month's vacation. He's getting retirement, and he's going to make about $20 an hour. Unheard of here.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean
so there you don't need church to make you happy. Guess what? We know what can make you happy and what makes a satisfied life. We know it's relationships. We know it's having your daily needs, your daily needs met, and having good health care.
Yeah,
those are what
at
makes
a very basic.
Yeah, basic health care. We don't even need plastic surgery.
Right.
No, just not basics.
Some people do.
Yeah. Dentist, vision, like going to the doctor, getting your blood pressure medicine, all that good stuff.
Right.
When you break your leg, you don't go bankrupt.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, these are fears that people have in America that they don't have over there. So they can live a more satisfied life over there. Now, does that mean, and we can get into like talking about what satisfaction really is, because he's about to go into like dissatisfaction and discontent. I guess he does talk about discontent. He just never says the word content. He also brings up Jim Carrey. He says, I think everyone should get rich and famous and do whatever they want to show them it's not the answer. I don't know if Jim Carrey has actually said this. Jim Carrey is a famous comedian.
Sounds like something you might say.
I mean, look, a lot of people in especially comedy are depressed. Which is the ultimate like irony of like, wow, you make so many people laugh. Yeah, you make so many people laugh and you make everyone, but you yourself are depressed. And so there's a lot of walking ironies or hypocrisies there. And I don't mean hypocrisies as a personal thing. It's just like it's like a hypocrisy of reality. And it's a contradiction, really, and it's just really interesting that these people, some of them are like that, but yeah, I guess some rich people, they can't handle money right, and they go miserable, right? Have you actually seen the people who have gone from relatively unwealthy life to I won the lottery? It destroys them.
50% go bankrupt.
Yeah, 50%.
Some, but
not just lose that money; they go bankrupt.
Yep.
Meaning they didn't go back to where they were.
A lot of them are worse off than they were before.
Yes. So
Jack Whittaker, he won. Well, at one time he had the record jackpot, and then recently we just had another record jackpot for like 1.5 billion or something.
Wow.
I think he had the one before that.
Actual payout's like 2 million. Because of taxes.
Yeah. They were saying after lump sum, it'd be around 600 million after taxes and everything. And
that's enough to last your life.
That's enough to last several generations
of life.
Because you're looking, and then of course you think about it, and if you invest it conservatively, like 3 or 5%, you're still going to make like 50 million or 40 million a year.
Yeah, the operating income on an investment like that is You can live just off that. You could start quote unquote a foundation and just make that an endowment.
You're never gonna like, unless you're a complete idiot.
Which some of them are,
and some of them are. But
they go and buy all this stuff, and then they try to live a high life, and
or give it away. That's usually what people do.
So that's actually the best thing.
But here's a cool thing, because we're talking about large amounts of money. Judge Judy was on
Make everyone else
Norm Macdonald's show. He interviewed her. Like, he has a Netflix show.
He does.
Interviewed, and he did a really good interview with her, because it wasn't like she wasn't trying to promo.
You said
anything.
Norm Macdonald?
Norm Macdonald.
Okay, yeah.
The Canadian.
Yeah. Just so hey there, Judge.
He is a really good interviewer. Turns out, I thought his show was hilarious. I don't know if this is going to come back or not, but he did because he really asked personal questions. And he asked her, well, what is it like to be super wealthy? And he's like, well, I thought you were wealthy like Oprah. And she was like, well, not quite. But she's she's the highest paid TV personality, believe it or not.
Wow.
I think she signed a contract worth like $200 million or something like that for a multi-year contract.
Man,
so
all those lawyers and all those
worth probably half
head on. All these people are paying her millions of dollars to have advertising on her.
Oh yeah.
show.
Yeah, I mean, and then she also cut a deal because they forgot to syndicate her show. So they went, because they didn't think no one thought that she'd be popular.
Right.
That enough that people would want to rewatch her shows.
Yeah.
But she just signed a huge syndication. So she's got mega bucks, big bucks. But, she made an interesting thing about what, she goes, having a lot of money, because she says, before she is an actual judge.
Yeah, she's been a judge,
a New York City judge. And she was saying, I was making, my husband and I were both civil servants. We're both lawyers. We're both we made, what would consider, be middle class. She goes, in New York City, she goes, cost of living is so high. She goes, we made decent money, but $75,000 in New York City doesn't go that far.
Right.
So, she goes, we shared a car. We shared a car. We had a nice apartment. She goes, you would consider us, middle class, upper middle class, working middle class. But she goes, once we got the money, she goes, it's fun to have, but it doesn't solve all your problems.
Right.
You still have it, but it ends the stress, money stress. She goes, you can end it for your friends and your family. She goes, I'm very generous with my money because I don't want to just die and not see people enjoy it. Right. She goes, my mother taught me that. She goes, she had this mink coat, and she was in the hospital, and she had just gotten this beautiful mink coat. And she goes, Judy, I want to see you wear it because I want to see you enjoy it. She didn't say that, but she goes, she got the idea. She wanted, before she passed on, she wanted to see her daughter wear her mink coat because it was the most expensive thing she had. And she goes, that's the way I try to treat my family, my friends, because you can instantly end that stress for people, that financial stress. She goes, but it doesn't add work. It doesn't eliminate work stress. It doesn't eliminate your health stress. You still got to watch what you eat. You still have relationship stress. So she goes, it
satisfies one problem.
Thing, but you still have, you're still human. So, I guess my point is that, this idea that there's ultimate, like, we were talking pre-show, we were talking about ultimate satisfaction.
Yeah.
Satisfaction and
satisfaction.
I make up words as I go.
That's fine.
English is dynamic.
Words are made up.
They're Rickisms.
Yeah. So
words are made up.
Words are made up anyway. They're like someone said, "Oh, well, we don't want to get mixed up in these semantic things." I'm like, words are necessarily semantic. He's like, well, no, not really. I'm like, well, semantic actually means having to do with the meaning of things. So yeah, words are necessarily semantic. So
Duh.
unless you disagree with what the word semantic means, and then we can have a conversation about that. But
there's nothing worse.
But that's just a semantic discussion about semanticism, and I don't even know if that's a word. So
that's funny.
So
like
no matter what your goals you reach, it doesn't satisfy was his point, and you know. I guess we'll discuss as we go along, because he's wrapping all this stuff. He's creating all these threads to try to tie off, and they end up becoming loose at the end. He goes through this Ecclesiastes 2:4-20. This is kind of, he believes Solomon, and you know what? From a biblical perspective, I believe Solomon is the proposed author of Ecclesiastes as well. Mm-hmm. You know, wise man has like pretty much more wealth than anyone else. And so in chapter 2, verses 4-20, we're not going to 420, blaze it. We're not going to go through the entire thing, and I'm not even going to read it. But just suffice to say, what this person is doing is enumerating all the things they've accomplished in life, all the pleasures they've had, all of the food that they've had, all of the land that they've. He even talks about the satisfaction of getting slaves, men and female slaves. He talks about all the harem of women he had. He talked about everything he had that gave him pleasure, that gave him success, and at the end of it, it really is just all vanity. And it just was what was it? It was blowing in the wind. That's all it is. And so he's basically saying, yeah, I did all of this stuff, and it's really just for nothing. It really is all for nothing. What have I really done with my life? And to me, that's just a person who just can't be satisfied. To me, that's just, I don't know. It depends on what their goals were.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that too.
Ecclesiastes is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, of the Bible. I mean, it's
absolutely.
Because there's a point at which he says, you know, so eat, drink, and have your fill.
Yeah. For
tomorrow we die.
Yeah.
Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. So it's like, yeah, go and live life is in there. But then also at the very end, it talks about loving God with all your heart and obeying him. But whatever. It's again, that's kind of a weird contradiction of the Bible again. Of vanity, he talks about it being vanity for acquiring things and pleasures, and that it didn't bring ultimate satisfaction. And that's the thing he keeps harping at, is ultimately satisfied, lifelong satisfaction with something. So then the question, of course, is, what is the nature of our discontent? Now there is the winter of our discontent. Well, this is the nature of our discontent, right? We never reach a state of lasting satisfaction. Happiness and euphoria can be shattered by a call from a doctor or a loved one. We want something deeper. We want something that's going to last a lifetime. And my question to this really is, does that exist in any form? Lasting satisfaction.
Yeah, I guess here's my problem with that.
Because I am lastingly satisfied about a few things. What's your question?
Well, you know, is that I question the whole narrative of that you can find something everlastingly satisfying. I mean,
and you're the second of two people he talks about later.
Yeah, death, I think, gives us this finality,
right?
That this will end, and at the same time, it also gives us meaning because we have that deadline. So we have to do something worthwhile, something that we can't just like squander. Like, this gives us this sense, and it's always there. It may be more in the front of our minds, and other times we don't even really hardly think about it. We're going on with our lives. But in some ways, I don't think we would have satisfaction if we just live forever and ever and ever. Where could there be satisfaction in that? If there's no finish line.
Yeah, at some point you would just be like, okay, I'm ready for it to be done.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just doing this over and over.
So what's God's excuse?
Kind of. That's what I want to know, is like, why would a being want to live forever?
Right.
Because forever is not just a long time. It's forever.
Right.
and ever.
It's just living.
Yeah,
it's not. Just, but the thing is too, I can see the other side of it, right? Where we talk about 100 years ago, what did we see around? We had polio, we had all this stuff, but then we had the telephone, we had the railroad, we had the car. Well, the railroad was even before 100 years ago, but we have cars, we had planes. We had radio and Wi-Fi and the internet and antibiotics. We had gene treatments. Now we can do genetic treatments. There's all sorts of cool things we've really discovered. Video games, and to Bill Gates's point, what are we going to see in the next 20 years? It's going to be amazing. We're going to see even more stuff in 20 years if we don't kill ourselves with the climate. And so. That to me, I can see it both ways. I can see, yeah, absolutely, we'd get bored of life if it were life like we have today. Like everything stops progressing today. There's only so much we can do, right? There's only so many times you can go to Disney World before you go, yeah, I've done that. But then Disney opens up a new thing, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. It's a new experience.
But eventually, you just get tired of the whole concept of Disney. Like, you're like, all right, like how many rides can I ride?
Yeah.
But
then they find a way to enhance the experience, right? So then not only this, but now you're going to wear like an augmented reality thing where you can actually, because they've done that kind of like with a lot of indoor rides. I went to Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, and the Universal theme park was really cool. Went to Harry Potter World with my mom. And we went into I know. We went into and I was trying to figure out how in the world are they doing this, and I finally figured it out, and now I'm satisfied. By the way, folks, this joke is not going away.
No.
So there's a Gringotts Bank ride and everything, and you see what's basically a hologram of Bellatrix Lestrange and some of the other people with her, and she ends up messing with the ride through Gringotts Bank to your vault and everything, and then she ends up tipping you down, and you go down, and basically you go through room and room where there's this big screen TV, or not screen TV, but big rear view projection or some kind of projection in front of you. And it's kind of a curved thing to make it look 3D. And so, all this stuff is happening, and there's actually plot to this ride. And so you're seeing all this, and it's like, and it's an experience, right? And so it goes along. I foresee we're going to have, like Google Glass, or we're going to have some kind of visor we take in 3D glasses. That was a huge movies, all sorts of things, 4D movies,
5D movies.
So,
experience string theory.
That's funny.
Coming to you 2023.
So anyway, so you go through all that. There's been ways we've enhanced that experience every single turn, and it brings people who have been like, yeah, I mean, I've been there. I mean, movie theaters, right? We've all been to a movie. So why do we still go to movies?
We're never satisfied.
Because we're never satisfied. Well, no, because there's something new to see. Right. But let me tell you about movies.
But it's the same old shit over and over.
Not really, because there's new things. Because I'd never seen Captain Marvel before, and Captain Marvel was awesome. I'd never seen The Matrix before. And I was like, whoa, what is this thing? Like, wow. And everyone else was like, this is blowing my mind. This is crazy. And I'm very satisfied with The Matrix. Like, not just the movie The Matrix, but also the trilogy. I'm very satisfied with that trilogy.
Yeah.
Could there be things that have been better? Absolutely. But I'm very satisfied with what they presented me.
It's finally over.
It's finally over. But
that was such a long movie.
It ties up nicely. I like it. I like the story. I'm satisfied. Yeah. I like that. I like things that have an end to them, actually, because then I go, that was nice. What was the movie?
Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
There was only 6 seasons, right?
Yeah. Well, then we weren't satisfied. We had to go Better Call Saul. But Breaking Bad had an ending.
Show.
Yeah, but it had an actual ending. Like, yes, this was made with an ending in mind. We're gonna have this isn't gonna continue forever. This is gonna be an ending. You know what I really hate? I really don't like shows that keep going on and on.
Walking Dead?
The Simpsons.
You
want to know what really doesn't satisfy is seeing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over in The Simpsons. It's been going on for what, 25, 26 years now?
I think they're on the 30th.
30? Oh, dear.
No, actually though, it is fun to watch them evolve because they are a show that can.
And Family Guy's like that now. Like
Family Guy's, yeah. The Simpsons though, because they're always current events. Yeah, they're always current.
That's all it is.
Family Guy's is anyway. Well, I still laugh. I still watch. I'm a fan.
And to me, it's like the Jon Stewart show, but Seth MacFarlane's own take on it. And it's the
basically.
Funny. I mean, it's just like, hey, here's the day, and let's make entertainment out of that. So and I guess
Seth doesn't even have any involvement now. He's got Orville, so he's like, I'm not even in the office anymore.
I am an actor,
producer, actor.
Director?
He is a brilliant guy.
No, absolutely. But I like shows that have a definite.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, because with cartoons you can live in that fantasy, but when reality, eventually, and Bart will have an end.
Yeah, I mean he's 30 years old now. He should be dead.
He's still in the 4th grade.
Or
did they promote him to 5th?
Yeah.
Anyways, we're getting way off topic.
Yeah, we're getting way off topic.
Hey, welcome to podcasting.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. So what? Yeah, so I mean, satisfaction. I'm satisfied with. You're satisfied with James Bond movies.
Very much so.
Oh gosh, now there's some movies.
And the Bourne series.
I don't like. I've not seen all of them. I've seen the first Bourne, the second Bourne. I haven't seen Bourne Ultimatum. I think there's been some other ones. Bourne Identity and Supremacy. I've seen. Yeah. I haven't seen Ultimatum. I haven't seen whatever.
Ultimatum, really.
So that won't satisfy me.
It might satisfy you.
Yeah,
but
so there's a way though I can have lasting satisfaction to use an ExRevism. So I am satisfied with Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever and other things like it. Yeah, that was awesome. Those are good movies. They were good experiences.
You like Goldfinger.
I like Odd Job. That's
slaps only. No, Odd Job.
That's a
sorry, GoldenEye reference.
A 007 GoldenEye reference. Not the movie for those older than the N64.
No, so I actually did just rewatch GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's really bad when you're rewatching a movie, and I haven't seen it in a while. I mean, I saw it in the theaters when it came out, but I'm not remembering the movie. I'm remembering the video game. Oh yeah, I remember this level.
Yeah.
As he goes through the movie, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that
Sarajevo
level.
base.
Yeah. Yep.
Being in Minsk. Yeah, No, so there are things that we can be satisfied with. We can be satisfied with. Well, here's the thing I made in my Facebook post the other day. By the other day, I mean last night. I just ate before I ate this in the pre-show. I was eating some Wendy's. Like, comment, subscribe if you like Wendy's. And so I ate some Wendy's. And the thing is I was needing food. I was not satisfied. I ate some food. And now I'm satisfied. I mean, I still have my Dr. Pepper over here. I've not finished it. But soon that Dr. Pepper will be done, and I'll be satisfied with it.
Until you're not.
Until I'm not, right? So, and really what it comes down to is this is what we expect. Because what are we at a very base level? I mean, at an even baser level, we're atoms and molecules and things like that. But at a very basic level, we are walking chemical reaction labs, just going off. Every cell is its own unique chemical reaction lab going off.
I just can't believe you just think we're just a bunch of chemicals.
At a very base, it's not all we are. We've become more complex. Our sentience is the most interesting, complex thing that's come about from these chemical reactions. But we're chemical reactions. So those chemical reactions need fuel.
Yeah.
And I get hungry when I need fuel. And so I eat. But those chemical reactions are still going.
Right.
It's still burning. It's like a fire, right?
Right.
A fire will not be satisfied.
Imagine that if we had a fire in the sky and we could take its energy in.
Yeah, right? But so you have fuel for a fire. So you put wood on there and it's good for a while and it's putting off heat that you like and everything. But at some point, the fuel of the fire is going out and you've got to put more on. You moron.
Yeah.
You've got to.
Did you just call me a moron?
You've got to put more wood on the fire. And there are multiple different fires for us. There's health. There's making sure we have enough money to provide basic things for us. Safety and security. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy is an outdated thing, but you can look at just kind of this hierarchy of...
Good way to start.
Of needs, right? Of security, being somewhat social and having a social circle, people that care about you. There are so many things. And what does this do? This gets you to the place where you can say, what do I want to do in this world? And now go out and do it. Imagine if Nikola Tesla would have been satisfied with one invention.
True.
Or satisfied that, hey, everything's great. I don't need to invent anything.
No,
Imagine if he would have been
driven
satisfied.
to obsession. Like
it means Thomas Edison wouldn't have had anybody to steal his ideas for.
He actually got bad grades in college because they were worried about it in college because he was so obsessed with trying to, and eventually invented the electricity, the electric motor that we know of as today that makes power for us.
Yep.
But he was going through this in his mind while he was in school, and he became just obsessed over it. I mean, he was up like 24 hours a day for, wouldn't sleep, wouldn't eat.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, his professors were worried about him. His classmates were worried about him. And
I mean, he usually would just walk down from his lab to the restaurant that was underneath his lab, get a sandwich, and then go back up and start working again.
He was a recluse.
Yeah, and so imagine if he wasn't satisfied. Imagine if
he was satisfied.
Or if he was satisfied. That's actually.
I got far enough.
Yeah,
I don't need to finish this problem. I'm pretty good. I got an A. I'm done. I'm moving on to the next assignment.
Imagine if all of these people would have just been satisfied who have developed. Imagine if Sir Isaac Newton would have just been satisfied that whatever, things fall. Who cares why? Who cares at what rates? Who cares about the laws of motion? Who cares about any of that? I'm satisfied with life the way it is.
So I think what we're getting here,
the ultimate satisfaction.
The ultimate satisfaction.
Satisfaction. That's fine.
Satisfaction. That's what she said.
That is going to be the title of the YouTube.
There we go. Satisfaction. I created a new word. I'm satisfied now. I think I've done everything I need to do for the English language. I've murdered it completely. No, so here we have the church that we obviously have physical needs that we need to eat. We're physical. So everybody can relate to having unquenchable desires. We're always needing food.
Right.
We need to eat every couple hours or at least a couple times a day. We need to we need relationships, and so we can't possibly always meet every physical demand that we need constantly. You can't. It's just physically impossible. Right. So here is the church latching on to this idea because it's universal. Everyone experiences dissatisfaction. That's right.
I like it.
It's like mastication.
Watch it. You almost did something dirty.
Just masticating.
I finished masticating before the show.
Yeah. It's very satisfying to chew and chew and chew. But so then they equate it to something that you can't define, because we can all define, I eat, I'm hungry, I eat, I feel full, I'm good. But then they start, there's always something in your life that unless you're one of those rare people is content in everything,
right?
Then no, you're going to have a bit of dissatisfaction. So they're really preying on people's just everyday life, and now they're saying, it's not physical, it's spiritual,
right? And what does that mean?
Whatever the hell that means.
But the question really about this is, okay, so is this, first of all, does satisfaction in some form exist? I think it does, but he's talking about ultimate satisfaction, where you don't need anything else. That's it. That's done.
But wouldn't life be shallow after that point?
Yes.
Like, I'm satisfied. Well,
won't heaven be shallow?
I guess my kids can come over. I don't need to see them ever again. I'm pretty satisfied with the relationship.
Exactly.
I've had about enough sex as I can have. I don't need it.
I've had about as much heaven as I can have.
Yeah.
Enough singing to God.
I've eaten all the donuts. Homer would be like, I've eaten all the donuts I could have.
Yeah.
Then what's the point?
Right.
Like, eventually you just want to say, okay, I'm done. Well, guess what? People do get like that. Go to the nursing home.
Yeah.
You will talk to people. Yeah, I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
I talked to a 100-year-old
my grandma,
woman.
yeah, my grandma, the last 30 years of her life, she was like, well, I'm ready. Like, I'm done. My husband died. Her husband died when she was like 50-ish. And,
wow.
From my grandpa died when he was in his 50s and had mesothelioma. He was a pipe fitter, and he was had asbestos, exposures all the time, and so that's where it came from. They're most likely thinking he smoked cigarettes, and they're like, nope, your lungs are good. It's the mesothelioma that's got you. So that's a very interesting thing. But no, she kind of, ever since that, she's just been kind of like, okay, I'm ready to see God. I'm ready to be done. And that's kind of sad, because there's like still a lot of life she had. She lived into her 80s, the last 10 of which kind of was a slow decline into whoa. Uh-oh.
Was that you?
No, it's you. Sorry, folks. Technical difficulty there.
Something played audibly. I don't know what it was.
We censored that.
It's starting to do that more often.
Yeah, you should probably mute your laptop. And so we have, my grandma had a slow slide to what is it, Alzheimer's, dementia, and it's really sad. But yeah, and that's what happens. But I mean, she kind of just got into this, well, yeah, whatever. And she had grandchildren that were popping out, great grandchildren that were popping out. I say popping out like they're, literally just shooting out of women's wombs. But yeah, she had grandchildren that were coming up, and oh, that's nice to see. But then at the end of the day, it was just like, well, I'm just waiting on God. That to me was very sad. That was very sad to me. Like, wow, you're done. You're done with life. You're done with everything. She'd still love to go to a honky. She'd still love to go honky tonkin'. We'd go down to the country music place, and oh man, she loved that. But otherwise she was done. She was just sitting waiting. She's like, she did in the last few
so she was satisfied then.
Last decade, she was like, I'm ready to die. She was satisfied. She really was satisfied, and that to me was sad. And I'm not criticizing my grandma. I'm just saying that wow, that's a situation. And she was cynical, like, she didn't want friends, really, because they keep dying, they go away, whatever. So it was kind of a cynical, what's the point? And to me, that's kind of like what the Christianity story is. The Christian story is, what's the point of the world, really? And, this kind of hope for this heaven idea that'll last forever. And so to me, it's does this even exist? But then the bigger question is, if an ultimate satisfaction does not exist, is that even a problem that requires a God to explain or solve?
No.
Because God doesn't seem to satisfy people. How many Christians do you know that are going through depression?
Oh, yeah.
How many Christians do you know that are going through doubts in their mind? How many Christians do you know that have had terrible drug problems while they were Christians? How many Christians do you know that have cheated on their spouses? How many priests do you know that have been raping boys? I mean, literally all these people are claiming that God satisfies everything and God is everything you need. Meanwhile, they have all these other things that they're not wanting. He makes a point about this later, and I'm going to bring it up. But it's kind of an ultimate cop-out and special pleading.
Isn't it always?
It really is a special pleading. But yeah, so it's like God doesn't really satisfy it. So then the question he brings up is, well, what happens when you achieve your dreams? It's not lasting. And then he brings up these sociologists who have studied this, and apparently there's sociologists and therapists who help people with the aftermath of achieving their dreams. Because apparently there's some coping mechanisms you have to have. Now, I don't know if any of this is true. This is also in the book. Meanwhile, folks realize this pastor is still just copying a lot of stuff from the book. This one, though, this sermon seemed a little bit more like he was providing more material.
Oh, well, that's good.
So that's good. But he was copying a lot of this stuff.
Or maybe he just read more ahead.
I think maybe he just read more ahead. I was more satisfied with the work on this lesson. A little more satisfied. Not satisfied, just more satisfied.
That's what he said, folks.
He says there's two types of people who cope with reaching success, and it's two people, and ExRev is the second one. It's living life assuming that satisfaction is possible. Again, this ultimate satisfaction idea. Or it's people who live life assuming satisfaction is not possible. And so the first people, which I don't think ExRev and I are not either one of these people. So the people who do believe that satisfaction ultimately is a possibility are the ever hopeful. They're especially the young. It's the, if only I could get, if only I get out of high school, everything's going to be great. If only I get out of college, everything's going to be great. Oh, I just need to get my house. Everything's going to be great. Oh, I just need to, and everything will be great. It's the constant goalpost shifting idea of like, it's going to be great. It's right over there. It's right over there. And it's like a plunger stuck to their head with a Twinkie, and they're chasing the Twinkie, not realizing, there's a problem there. The pursuit reflects an emptiness in us.
Ooh.
A God-sized
So
emptiness.
deep.
Yeah. So then there's the resentful, those that everything just keeps getting in my way. I'd be happy if just this. I'd be happy if just this. Everything just keeps getting in my way. I just need to get this done. These people are in my way. These things. It's never my fault. It's everyone else's fault. And I suppose there are the resentful people who believe that success is a possibility, and if everybody just get the hell out of the way. Doesn't that sound like Christianity? Oh, we'd all be happier if everyone would just
get the gays
if we just get the gays away and get them to convert to straightness, we would be happy. Christianity, if everyone would just be a Christian, everyone would be happy. It seems to be the world is always in the way. The world, everything's in the way, and everything would be great if we just. So by the way, folks, a lot of these, and if the pastor is actually listening, a lot of these things you listed
doubtful
apply to Christianity, apply to the pursuit of Christianity.
Well,
so really, people. So this would be living life assuming that Christianity can truly satisfy. The ever hopeful. Well, if only we just believe in God. Well, if only we just read the word more. Oh, well, if only we just pray more. If only we just went to more gospel meetings or sermon series. If only we did this. If only we fed enough poor people. If only. The ever hopeful. That's the young Christians. They get what they want, but they're still not satisfied. That's a number 3. So. I couldn't quite get the quote. This is an approximation. So like, court cases that essentially work towards the way a person or a party wanted, but they're still angry. They're never satisfied with a court case. I don't know. I've read the Freedom from Religion court cases successes, and I've been very satisfied with a lot of those court cases with the way they turned out. But I guess he's talking about gay marriage, because when some of that and the cake thing, that didn't really go about how
we gotta serve gay people.
Yeah, that
how can
I guess
I be satisfying my God if I make a
gay cake?
A gay cake.
A gay cake. What the hell's a gay cake?
Rabble.
But they still, and this is evident that they still have a hole in their heart.
This is like a church. Like, this church is really stereotypical. I can imagine this church.
Well, it is a Southern Baptist Conference church. It's just more veiled.
I can just see them being the rabble people in South Park. Rabble.
They took our
They took our Jesus.
They took our Jesus. So, these are the Christians who get exactly what they want, but they're never satisfied, right? These are the Christians who go out and, they get the cross, they get the everything. These are the Christians who say, America is mostly a Christian nation, but we're not satisfied. We're persecuted. I mean, it can go on and on. There's the driven people. They're constantly upgrading. They're always doing something new. They just keep going and doing the next thing. And to me, that's like the entrepreneur, right? Like Tesla, just keep doing more and more and more. which is a great thing, actually. He's like, well, that's just like a treadmill. It's all sound and fury, but it's getting you nowhere. And I'm like, I don't know. It's getting you a lot of places, actually. Because, again, like I said, think if Tesla did not stop doing his stuff. If he just like after one invention or none, just was like, well, that's it. I'm done. If he wasn't driven to go, yeah, and now the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Imagine if science did that. They just said, well, we know everything we're really wanting to know, so we're going to pack it all in. No, it's the next thing. We still have questions. There's still things to do.
Yeah. So in other words, being dissatisfied or unsatisfied is a good thing.
Yeah, there is. It's that again. It's explained naturally by we've done one thing, but there are other things to do. We have not exhausted all of the things to do in life. Even though Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun, I will tell you right now, Solomon would shit himself if he saw the internet. Well, this is new.
Yeah, it just scrolls on a screen.
Right? Instead of the words appearing in my head like they do when God gives me dreams, they're on a screen. They're on a screen of light. And then there's the despairing. The people who've maybe achieved the dream, but now they're empty and they feel that somehow they've failed. And I know that there's some people like this. They're just like, it's just not what I wanted, and I guess it's something wrong with me then, because isn't this what I wanted? This is the story of a girl who drowned. Okay, this is the story of Betty Draper. Do you remember Betty Draper from Mad Men? Did you ever watch Mad Men?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So this is the story of Betty Draper, who married this guy who's a big ad executive. She has this wonderful country. What is it? Austining. Yeah, she's in Austining, New York. And this is a beautiful, gorgeous, very upper class, ritzy. Children are beautiful, like everything about her life. And she always goes like, everything just needs to be perfect. I just want everything to be perfect. Like, everything just needs to be perfect. I don't want any of this. I don't want any of that, and everything. And she gets it. She gets everything she ever wanted. Now, Don is not satisfied. In fact, he goes and sleeps with other women, a lot of things, and behind her back, and then freaks out when she's slept with someone, or possibly slept with someone. So anyway, so she's going, and she's like, I just wanted everything to be perfect. And she's like, is there anything wrong with me? Is it a problem with me? And so she is despairing over that life is not perfect, or can't be perfect, or can't be satisfied. But she's got this idea that it can happen. And she's now despairing in life. Yeah. And then you know what she did? She went out and she found another guy, and she's still got her problems. She's got personal problems. She actually does. Feeling that you can be satisfied with a perfect life is a problem, actually. You have some problems you need to deal with, probably.
I think it's just growing up. I think it's just growing up is you do. I mean, you realize when, oh man, if I was like that when I was in high school. I just couldn't wait to get out of high school.
Uh-huh.
So
many things are going to change.
The days, it was like so light to find.
The world is your oyster.
The day after, I was like, oh, now what? Now I got to go to college.
Yeah.
And then I got to do this, and then
it's almost like your freedoms are limited because you made choices.
Yeah. Oh my God. You gotta. Well, that's the thing. When you're young, freedom. You're not free yet, so you have no idea what freedom is. You have no idea what responsibility. Freedom means responsibility. Is another word.
Yeah.
So it's like,
we talked about that last
week. Now you get to have a full-time job now.
Yeah.
And you got to go to work every day, which is worse than school. I wish I was back at school.
I don't.
No.
I was so happy to be done with school. There's the only
and that's the thing, because you found a job you like.
Yeah, but the only thing I guess is that now I realize, looking back, there were so many things that I could have done differently.
Right.
But at the time, I wasn't aware or capable of making those decisions that I could make today. So really, I made the only decisions I could. Then there can be a whole discussion about free will and whether you can actually make decisions. But anyway, that's traveling down too far a road. But satisfaction, you're always going to have things that you're like, yeah, it could have been better.
Yeah.
And the question is because he lists two people that, satisfaction is possible and satisfaction is not possible. That almost sounds like a true dichotomy, but I'm like, hey, is there anybody who's just content?
Well, yeah.
Who's just like, things could be better, but, it's fine the way it is. That burger could have been better. I ate it. I ate all of it. Not because, who eats all of a burger if there's not some part of it that's satisfying them? My grandma actually did once. She ate a fish sandwich and said, something just didn't taste right about that. And you kept eating it. No, it's food. And then she got sick. It's like, well, your taste buds are telling you, hey, don't eat this. So I guess there's people like that. But supposing everything's working and you're listening to your body appropriately, you would eat. I don't know. I think there are content. I think there are content people.
Yes.
And I think you can be content.
I think it's part of growing up.
Yeah.
And so what the church is doing is they're creating an impossibility.
Right.
They're saying, not only are they saying you're not satisfied, or if you are, well, you can only find it in Jesus. So,
right.
So they're not actually saying that they are content, but they're saying you won't ever be if you don't have Jesus in your life. So because if you talk to some Christians, or a lot of Christians, they don't believe that an atheist can be happy. Seth Andrews was talking. I think it was Seth Andrews, or no, it was Matt Dillahunty. I think was, he'll go home and go, no, Dad, I'm actually happy. I'm actually happy in my life. I'm actually satisfied. No, I think it was Seth Andrews, actually. And he was like, no, there's no way. You can't be happy without Jesus.
Yeah.
Seriously, folks. Yeah,
you can't. There's no way you can be happy without Jesus.
I think learning to be content is, it's just maturity, And
there's so many.
And it's not to say that you're immature if you're not satisfied, because like I said, not being satisfied is also good. I think learning to be content is understanding that at some point you're not going to be able to change something in your life. It is, you accept it, you've moved on.
Right. You accept reality as it is.
Now, there's some things that you can change. If you want a new job, hey, if you're not happy with your job, you can always work hard and find a new job. So not everyone is able to do that.
Sam Harris also talks about this to a degree, right? So Sam Harris talks about being bored is a form of pain and suffering. And it's the whole idea of our mind just kind of being lost in thought and trying to be distracted all the time with something. That there's nothing worse than being left to your own devices and just kind of like, what am I going to do? Like, that is the worst thing. Is to just be, because
we all know what that leads to.
Yeah,
it rhymes with mastication.
Yeah. So, but no, just being left to yourself and just with no stimulation whatsoever.
Oh, no stimulation.
Yeah, no stimulation whatsoever. It's just
that's terrible.
But the actual solution to that problem is Sam Harris talks about meditation, and not in a spiritual,
right.
Whatever, but chanting and mantras. What he tries to do is he tries to actually get you to just be observant of thought and just be observant of consciousness as a way of just allowing experience to arise in your conscious. And he talks donuts, right?
Let's focus on the donuts.
Yeah. So he talks about that, and it's basically a way of kind of just viewing the world in such a way that you just, there's kind of a contentness to it. Like, okay, hunger or pain or anything else going on in the world. Yeah, here's where we are. We yesterday or tomorrow doesn't really matter. It's just right now that matters. So, right. There's certain things that he has. Now. Yeah, living in the now, and so it's kind of like the dude, right? The dude abides.
The dude abides.
I am ordained by the Church of the Latter-day Dude.
Oh, the Latter-day Dude.
Yeah, just so you know, if you ever need to be married out there,
you need
an officiant, I can officially take care of you. Or whatever. It's like your opinion, man.
It's like your opinion,
just don't piss on my rug. So those are a lot of inside jokes that I'm sorry if you're listening and
if you haven't seen the dude
Actually, I haven't. I've only seen a lot of YouTube clips, so I've probably seen, if it's an hour long, I've seen like 45 minutes of it. Only the mundane things I haven't seen them. So you then there,
watch it.
Oh no, I need to.
You do.
It's on my list. Then there are those who think that satisfaction, ultimate satisfaction, doesn't exist, and I'm one of these people, and I think you are too. Ultimate satisfaction does not really exist in the way they're talking about it.
No, I don't think it can. Obviously, you don't believe in the supernatural,
right?
So I don't think there's any ultimate satisfaction.
Because to me, satisfaction is all about meeting some kind of need or chemical reaction that's needing to happen in your body, and especially in the brain with like endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, like all this stuff in your head, dopamine. So all this stuff in your head's going on. We don't lick, and people at home can't see me, or in the car, can't see me, but I'm doing a straight line with my hand.
Oh boy.
Our minds don't like that. It's just,
that was very satisfying.
I am sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Or however one identifies. So
we can edit that out.
No, because I just uploaded straight. So flatlining, right? That means you're dead. There is no flat line to the human brain.
Phil's gonna die soon.
Yeah, there's no flat line to the human brain. It is always going down or it is going up in dopamine and hormone and chemical levels, right? So neurotransmitters are clicking on more frequently or less frequently. It's never just constant. Constant, that doesn't exist. It's not how it works. There's a baseline normality of stimulation we have that we call normal, but otherwise, so there are going to be times where we go, oh, that's sad. Oh, look, a puppy, and all of a sudden that just goes down and then right back up, right? So we have that all the time, and again, we would expect this. Again, it's kind of speaking against the intelligent design idea that they're. Again, this is weird because they don't even make, nowhere in this, by the way, do they make a God, blah, 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 satisfaction doesn't exist, blah, 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 therefore God. They don't do that. And they don't say, oh, well, God intelligently designed us. They seem to try to get around to, well, doesn't it seem that we're made for something bigger than this? So they kind of get around to intelligent design from
ultimate meaning.
Yeah, ultimate meaning. And so it kind of gets around to that. But it's like, with what we see, I would expect people to not be satisfied in general because, again, we are walking chemical reaction laboratories, especially in our brain, and things are going up and down all the time. And we have stimulus. We have change. If you were in heaven and you were always at one level, you'd be dead. Like, this is what I don't get is like, because you would have to have more and more because otherwise you're just at that level. And now it's like, okay, what now? So anyway, so for those who assume that satisfaction doesn't exist, here's the ways we have to cope with this. Self-sacrifice, altruism. Yeah, right. So, this is the thing he says then. So
he brings in an atheist idea.
Right, altruism. And he says,
it's not atheist idea, but
yeah.
Anyways, there's a famous writer that wrote about it. So go ahead.
He says the problem with that is that it's still all about you.
So he likes to listen to Ayn Rand because she said the same thing.
Yes,
we're all self-interested, which I don't buy into. I mean, I don't buy into.
I believe we're self-interested.
It works up to a point,
right?
Because there's clearly things that people do that are not self-interested in, like lay down their lives, like soldiers jumping on a grenade to save their troops.
Right.
I think Jesus it's even in the Bible. There's no greater love than to sacrifice,
to give one's life for your friend or even an enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and there are explanations through evolution for that because again, we have the problem of keeping our species surviving or as a war effort, hey, what makes better sense? I die over this grenade or my entire, division or my entire group of friends over here dying? Well, it's better that I die. And that's a split-second decision that someone just made.
Instinct.
It's an instinctual decision that has been programmed into us.
We have an instinct to protect.
Yes.
And
And again,
doesn't necessarily have to be a logical reason.
Right.
We're also emotional. So a lot of times you will hear this, we protect our young because obviously we have that instinct, because if those that don't have that instinct end up not reproducing.
Right.
So it's ingrained in. I mean, it's instinctual.
But this brings up a problem to me.
So they'll say, well, how can you have that without God? Well, I don't think we need. I don't think you need to have that.
Yeah, I don't think God is a necessary and sufficient, sufficient and necessary explanation for this. The other point here that I was kind of making is I had a WTF moment about this, because I was like, I was like, wait, so you're telling me altruism is self-interested? So when Jesus says to love your neighbor
as yourself, it's self-interested.
It's self-interested.
Well, yeah, because how else are you going to get to heaven?
That was actually the next thing I wrote down on here, was like, hey, you want to get to heaven. So isn't really all of this just about greed? You're wanting to get to heaven, this ultimate satisfaction. Yeah. You want to win this lottery. You want to win this sweepstakes. So I'm going to be nice to you so I can go to heaven. Like, literally, this is... So just like the last one was like, hey, Christianity's like this. Well, Christianity's like this too. Yes. I mean, if you're going to say it's self-interested, then yeah, it's self-interested. I mean, with people who self-sacrifice, and then he talks about people who will end up resenting the fact that they were the fact that they were altruistic.
Because I don't hear too many people doing that. Well,
because okay, how many people do you know that says, "Look at all I've done for you. Look at all I've done for you."
Oh, okay.
But they didn't get a reciprocation of some kind. And to a degree, I think, well, yeah, but you have needs as well. Like, you're out there performing services and to cover the needs and help the needs of others. But if you do that to the point where you starved yourself of fulfilling your needs otherwise, yeah, you're going to get resentful. And because you've made a stupid decision to treat everyone else as higher than you, and therefore you're subservient. And at some point you're going to be like, yeah, what? Everyone treats me like crap or whatever, or I'm not getting thanked, or all this other stuff. I'm just like, yeah, well, that makes total sense, because people do have a need to be appreciated.
People shouldn't be abused.
And people shouldn't be abused.
And then at the same time, then there are those that are just martyrs.
Yes.
Look at what I do for you. I cook and I slave. I order.
But what they are is feeling like they're not loved. They feel like there's still something not satisfied there. But, the question is what does give their life meaning? What really satisfies? Well, there are people.
Being a martyr satisfies.
Maybe being a martyr satisfies. But maybe going and helping people actually does make this person feel better. Not just about themselves, but better about life.
And say it's a good, that's number one thing therapists tell people that are really suffering from depression is get outside and volunteer.
Volunteer.
Now that's not to say, that's
the golden.
No,
it's a golden ticket, folks.
It can help. It doesn't necessarily solve depression, but
then there's
some people it can.
Then there's you, the cynical.
Yes.
So the cynical apparently.
I'm the guy that likes Ecclesiastes. I think it's the best book. It's like everything's meaningless. Well, yeah, I knew that as a Christian. See, this is the funny thing is it's like as a teenager going through. And
Christians are cynical, by the way. Keep going.
Cynical Christian Rick over here is I can just remember like, well, we go to work to buy things that we don't need. Because we need, so I buy a car I don't need to so I can go to work to pay for the car I don't need. It's just this unbelievable.
Meanwhile, it's all going to go away and burn up when God comes back.
Right. So what's the purpose? Point? I mean, just to buy cute little knickknacks around the house, and what's the purpose in that? That doesn't seem very. Everything's meaningless.
So they've stopped chasing. They've stopped the pursuit. They have lower expectations. That's me. So me for experiences like movies, this is how okay, folks, the steps to being satisfied with a movie. Do not watch the previews. Number one, do not watch the previews.
Yeah.
Number two, do not set high expectations. because this movie was not directed by you.
That sounds like some deep Jewish philosophy there.
Jewish philosophy? This movie was not directed by you. It was not produced by you. It was not, you have your own imagination. You have your own way that you just thought that should have went. So then when you go to the movie and you see it and you're like, ugh. And so you had this build up and it's terrible. Meanwhile, everyone else is like, oh, this is a great movie. It reminds me of like Black Panther and even Captain Marvel now. People are like, oh, it's awful. And I'm just like, really? Because I went in there and I was like, this is a good movie. I like it. And it's not from the standpoint of like, oh, it's The Godfather or it's, some other like masterpiece of a film. I'm like, I don't want to compare it to that because it's its own experience. Someone asked me the other day, if you knew that I laid a steak in front of you and I told you that this steak is going to be the best steak you're ever going to have. And not only that, but somehow I've qualified it and said, yes, this is a nexus in space and time where this steak right now is the best steak you're ever going to have in life. Do you eat it? And I go, yes, I'm going to eat it because number one, I want to know what that tastes like. Yeah. I'm not satisfied until I've had that. But number two, also, I can enjoy a steak that is not that steak. I can enjoy a steak for its own sake. Right. I can enjoy this other steak. But then there's people that are like violinists who I remember there was a famous violinist who had heard somebody, or maybe it was just a composer, had heard somebody play this piece or had whatever, and he said, I'm giving up the violin. I'm done. I've heard the best now. Everything I'm going to do is going to not even compare. What's the point? I'm done. And kind of a way of saying also, okay, it's time to hand this off to the next generation. Meanwhile, I just watched the 7-time Tetris champion of the world get beat by a 16-year-old kid who can do 10. It's called the hyper tap. He can do 10 inputs on a NES controller in a second. Crazy.
That's the Nintendo Entertainment
System, an NES.
For those non-millennials out there.
And he can do that, and he can beat this guy. He beat this guy at Tetris. And the question is okay, are you gonna hang it up?
Can't do that.
I know, right? It's like, I mean, he can just go. It's called hyper tap, and he's got a way to anyway.
Well, drummers are like kind of like
Yeah. And so the question was, hey, are you gonna pack it in? This guy just beat you, and he beat you with hyper tap. You can't hyper tap. So are you gonna just close it in? He's like, no, I'm gonna compete next year. He's not done.
Yeah.
He just got beat. He just got knocked down off the throne by a 16-year-old kid. But he's like, no, I like playing the game. So to me, awesome. Like, I'm kind of cynical, right? I'm the guy who doesn't go in with high expectations.
You're the pessimist.
Maybe. Like,
that's where I got the Jewish reference, because in Jewish culture, it's like, don't get your hopes up, because if you don't get your hopes up, you can't be disappointed.
You can't though. I mean,
so it's a great strategy. It's actually a good strategy.
But do I still go out and pursue satisfaction? And do I still pursue good experiences? Yeah, and I have consistently more good experiences because I've learned to not somehow build up this experience to something that it can't ever reach.
That's what she said.
It's called being a pragmatist or a realist, really.
Can't ever reach.
I mean, yeah. I mean, people do it with sex, right? They think, I'm going to have like the best sex ever.
Best climax ever.
And it's like,
can't ever reach it.
And so instead of talking about sex, we could talk about steak. This may be the best steak ever. And my question back to this guy was, can you distinguish between the best steak you've ever had and the best steak ever until you know you've actually had the best steak ever? No, the first steak you had is the best steak you've ever had. The second steak you have will either be the best steak you've ever had or the worst steak you ever have.
Your first sniff of cocaine is your best sniff of cocaine.
It's also your worst. So really we're comparing things with each other, right? So this is a little bit of a lesson in being content, is to say, hey, let's not build up things to something they can never measure up to.
Well, I think that's where my experience.
Meanwhile, we all need to be like Jesus, a perfect person.
I think this is one of the reasons why I just found out how Christianity is a farce, because I drove myself nuts.
You just now figured out Christianity is a farce?
Yeah, just now. It was just an epiphany right on this podcast. Oh, wait, no, right. Oh, Rick, come and join me in hell.
Yeah, right.
No, but anyway, so no, I mean,
how'd you get in here?
So the alternative to this is driving yourself nuts because you're not satisfied. And as a Christian, you're supposed to be satisfied. You're supposed to have joy and all this stuff. Well, why am I not? And so well, if you go on, maybe this is a test. Maybe I'm supposed to be persevering through this, or it's a character. God's trying to strengthen my character. All these things, or
suffering. It's character building.
It's suffering. Yeah, exactly. It's
your mom died. Great. It's good for your character.
It's good for your soul. You hate your job. Keep going back to work.
Dying of AIDS in Africa. It's good. It's
good. The thing is, yeah, exactly.
Builds character.
It's just
great way to stay in shape.
Yeah, I mean, I sought after what to do and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and it just what's God's will for my life? And not getting any answers, obviously, but you drive yourself nuts. I drove myself nuts, and when the simple answer was quit the fucking job.
Yeah.
Because I was working in a call center and I was so dissatisfied with that job, and it was making my life absolutely miserable. And instead of, I was thinking if I was an atheist then, I would have just quit the job. But instead, I put all these stupid spiritual meanings onto it, and I stayed in a job I was very unhappy with when I could have just quit the job.
Yeah.
Duh, that's what I wanted to do.
Think about how many people stay in bad marriages because of God, right? And it's like they're getting beat or they're getting emotionally abused. There are women who essentially have been raped because they didn't want to have sex, whether they did or did not say no to their husband, and they did not want sex, or their husband did something to them and they said no and they did it anyway, but they're still with them because, they're good, and they make all kinds of victim excuses that victims do make, of traumatic experiences make. And it sucks because the Bible, to a lot of people, say you can't get divorced, or only if he's had sex with another woman can you, or another person, can you get divorced? And it's like, wow, this is terrible. So God wants you to live with a shitty person for the rest of your life. This is like exactly what they did back in the Old Testament with, hey, if you rape this woman who's betrothed or not even married to anybody, you got to marry her now. And someone literally told me the other day, well, yeah, but and I used to think this. I actually thought this too. I came up with it on my own as well. Oh yeah, but that was back then. That was the best way to take care of her. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she thought this was a great way to take care of her. I'm going to live with my rapist and he's going to rule over me and I'm going to be his property, essentially. I was like, oh, but he can be punished by the elders. I don't think he's going to be punished by the elders.
Yeah.
They're married now, so he can have sex with her whenever he wants. So he can rape her all the time. So then there's the last type of person who doesn't think satisfaction can happen. The Yoda. He actually then goes on and talks about Star Wars a lot. And so this is the only part of the sermon I was a bit satisfied with. So the Yoda philosophy is about detachment. It's basically the Jedi Order, right? Detachment, being stoic, withdrawing from society, not really having love. Remember Yoda in the prequels once told Anakin to get rid of all your attachments or lose everything you love, or everything that you would hate to lose or you fear losing. Go ahead and don't think of them. Don't. Whatever, just detach yourself from them. Well, here's some Star Wars nerd stuff. Yoda was wrong, and was proved wrong because the Jedi Order was destroyed. And in the it's the 8th episode, they kind of go through that a bit. Spoilers for people who haven't watched the 8th episode, because Yoda essentially kind of just goes like, we were wrong. We didn't get it right. And this is a person who's now one with the Force, right? And it's like, we got it wrong. It's time for the Jedi Order to go away. A new order needs to arise where it's balanced. And so that's what it was really about. But anyway, he's strawmanning why people withdraw from society. ignoring that people might want to live a simpler life. Instead of going out and being with everyone all the time and whatever, some people honestly just do want to live by themselves.
They're introverts.
They don't want to accumulate possessions.
Hermits.
I have a friend right now who's a minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to his house, or his apartment rather. He has 2 chairs. He does have a TV, but he only has like a couple cups to drink from and a couple plates to eat off of. Wow. And not because he's poor. He makes decent money. It's because he's like, why do I need anything more? And I was like, wow, that's actually really good. You can't tell it from a kitchen, but I started, when I'm actually practicing this, I practice a little bit more where I don't get out every single plate every single time. I only have a couple plates that I get out any single time. And when I need to use a plate, I wash it. But he has brought a more happy life because it's simpler.
Right.
Is it ultimate satisfaction? No, but it gets rid of a lot of those conflicts. So you take people like Buddhists, you take a lot of people like Zen masters. Mm-hmm. They seclude themselves away from society to get away from the quote unquote noise of everything that's driving people that they don't care about. So to me, the whole detachment or stoicity, he's kind of strawmanning that. He hasn't fully gone through everyone that could. And that's the thing too, is like, this is not an exhaustive list. He goes on criticizing Yoda, but Yoda was wrong about attachment. And later he realized it. And he said something about
very contemporary sermon. He's quoting movies.
Yeah. And he's basically saying there's no love there. And I'm like, that's a straw man though. That's a straw man. People, you ask people in Buddhist monk temples or whatever, do you love anything? They'd say, yeah, I love this. Anyway, so understanding our discontent. He basically talks about the God-shaped hole in our hearts.
Oh, I have a donut-shaped hole in my heart. I'm gonna go eat a donut.
Yeah,
donut holes.
I'm sorry, Jack's Donuts. Jack's Donuts has donuts.
Oh man,
just down the street.
So
I mean, he kind of just keeps going on about loving your neighbor more than yourself, and I'm like, but is this really?
Oh, he added to scripture there.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, is this really true, or a result of a species survival instinct where someone would want to actually save their neighbor and possibly put themselves in danger? I will tell you that single people are more likely to do that than married people because they've got kids to worry about. You see it in movies all the time where dude wants to go do something. Wife says, you have kids though. You need to be there for them. So which do I provide for? Do I provide for this person who's about to die, or do I provide for my kids who might die without me? Right? So, I mean, there's a decision that has to be made. So which is the altruistic choice? Life insurance. Yeah, which is the altruistic choice there, right?
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
So, I mean, can you I don't know. He just keeps going on about this. We can't find any fulfillment in anything on this earth until we realize our whole is God-shaped. So you're saying we can find fulfillment on this earth when we realize our whole is God-shaped.
It's Jesus.
Right.
It's a big J in your heart.
He says the world is broken, and he cites Adam and Eve and said they loved themselves more than God. Wrong. God deceived them. He said, if you eat from that tree...
Here we go.
If you eat from that tree... That I put there in the garden, by the way, that I chose to create and put in the garden, that I chose to create and knew you were going to do this anyway, because I'm all-knowing.
Uh-huh.
I was going to say, that's just a humming. Okay. I was hoping I hadn't made something ring. So he does this thing, and they go and eat of the tree, of that which I said thou should not eat. And Satan had told them, hey, by the way, God didn't tell you the whole truth about that. You'll actually become like him. Because he said, if you eat that fruit, in the day you eat it, you will die. And they didn't die. And Satan said, as the serpent, hey, actually, you'll be like God. The only one telling the truth in that scenario was Satan. Satan didn't lie to Eve. Satan told her the truth. You're not going to die in the day that you eat it. Your eyes will be opened. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. And guess what? I guess apparently being naked is evil. So when they ate the fruit, they found that they were naked. And God said, Adam, where are you? And he hid from God. And then he said, well, here I am, God. And God says, well, why have you covered yourself? Well, I am naked. Who has told you you are naked? And then he immediately says, have you eaten of the tree that I said you would not eat?
Body shaming.
Yeah. So, so God already knew that God had told a lie. Because now he's giving man more information. Oh, did you eat of the fruit of the tree that I said you shouldn't eat? So God didn't tell the truth there. So God lied. It wasn't that Adam and Eve loved themselves more. It's that Adam and Eve were, I guess, led into a situation by a serpent that God also made. It's like, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. This will not do. And to say this world is broken, he says, Jesus said to love God first and love thy neighbor. This doesn't seem to satisfy either. And then he says, but you know what? Because of our sin nature, we're still going to sin and we're still not going to be satisfied. Okay, so now you've brought up this whole thing of like, you're going to be satisfied with God. God's the only way to be satisfied. Oh, but by the way, because of our sin nature, we're still not going to be satisfied. This is special pleading.
Yeah.
Hey, the reason why we can't be satisfied is because of our sin nature, but God's going to solve that, but not yet. He's going to solve it later. And at the very end, because he brings up Paul saying that he wants to do good, but then he also wants to do evil. There's a whole thing in Romans of Paul fighting within himself.
Oh, yeah, the battle of the flesh.
Yeah. Our hearts are going to be transformed. And he's citing Revelation about the new heaven, the new earth, when God judges the world and brings in heaven. He says our hearts are going to be transformed. So, wow. So the only way we can be satisfied is if God changes our actual being.
Yeah. Then you're not you anymore.
What a fucking dick. I'm just going to say, what a fucking dick to say, to make somebody quote unquote sick and command them to be well, and then take a few people from the earth that were sick and say, oh, I'm going to make you well now, even though I commanded you to be, and there's no way you could be. And I'm going to make you well now. And the rest of you who just couldn't jump up and be well, I'm going to throw into a pit of fire for the rest of your life. What a fucking dick. I'm sorry, but that doesn't satisfy me, and it will not do. Like, you will not sell me this stack of shit. And yes, I'm being skeptical very much of this story here.
I think Phil's skeptical.
Yeah, I think I may be a bit skeptical here. I'm sorry, but this just will not do. To say that, we're not satisfied because we need God, but even with God, you're not going to be satisfied because we have a sin nature. So therefore, you're not going to be satisfied. Either way, you're not going to be satisfied. So we're back to, I don't need a God to actually explain why we're not satisfied, or how we might be able to get some level of satisfaction out of this life. Your God requires far more assumptions. Your God requires far more farcical machinations of the mind to get back to the very same place we started in. We are not satisfied. We ended the way we started. We're not satisfied. Even with God. Then what the hell was the point of this sermon? I will not be back.
Phil got sick at church.
I did. What I'll probably will do is I might listen to the next week's, or if I find one interesting, I might listen to it more. I am thinking of writing to this church, to that pastor, and kind of not be nearly as scathing as I am here.
Oh no.
But just kind of mark some criticisms and just kind of say, okay, this, you can't have your cake and eat it too here. This is special pleading. This is moving the goalpost. This is a straw man. And you know what? And I will say this is fair enough too. I can't steel man this person's position on anything. I can only tell you this is stuff based on what I just heard from the person myself. And I may not even be remembering every single detail explicitly correctly. Yeah. So I'm fully understanding. I may not have everything about this person's position correctly, but I think we're also to the point where we can pretty confidently say this does not justify a God existing.
No. I mean, we've heard it our whole lives.
And it wasn't meant to. It was just meant to comment on our modern culture and how terrible it is and start a dialogue with people about how they should be better.
Yeah, I mean...
That's really all this turned into. It wasn't really truly a Skeptics...
It sounded like an hour of Fox News.
Right, not quite, but yeah, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, they're a little bit more, they're a little bit less kind, I guess you could say.
But that was the end of the sermon. That's whew.
So I guess you were unsatisfied?
I was unsatisfied. I wasn't even honestly, I haven't even been satisfied with replying to this. I have not even been satisfied with replying to this because I was ready for, I guess I got my expectations up too high. I was ready for, this is the reason I believe in God. These are reasons. I was ready for even just trotting out the cosmological argument, even trotting out the moral argument, the 5 ways, Thomas Aquinas. I was ready for all of that. Just like, okay, any of this or something new. Give me something new. I've heard all of these things, not as he's presented them, but even when Timothy Keller, and I haven't even read the chapter yet. I just kind of skimmed through and found that the title headings and some of the details looked very similar to his sermon today. So I know he got most of this from that book, but it's like that book is...
What are they paying him for?
But this, the book they're working out of is really filled with bad assumptions as well about what secularism is, skepticism is, atheism is. Like it doesn't get in it, and that's tough, and it's really tough to steel man someone else's positions and ideas, and I get that. But to think, oh yeah, we've answered this question, and I'm like, that wasn't even a question I had.
Yeah,
I'm asking you, why do you think your God exists? If the reason you think your God exists is because you can't have ultimate freedom and you can't have ultimate satisfaction,
well,
that's a really weak reasons.
I think
that's feelings, and therefore God exists is all I've been hearing.
Pretty much
feelings, therefore God exists.
It's the emotional game that you're seeing. The church creates a need, and then they say we're the answer to it. So
right.
You have a porn addiction, you're addicted to sex, sex is evil, sex is wrong. What do you think about all day? Sex, duh. I mean, it's just like, okay, so they create a problem that you shouldn't be thinking about sex, and then, oh yeah, but we'll give you forgiveness.
Right.
Keep coming back.
You're told you're sick and commanded to be well.
Exactly. So here it is.
I believe that's a Christopher Hitchens.
Completely normal human experience. We're unsatisfied because we're not done living yet.
Right. The chemical reactions have not resolved. Right. If they did, you would be dead.
Your needs are not met because they need to be continually met. So, yeah, it's completely natural. And, of course, they're saying, well, this is a problem. Okay, well, let's look at the solution is to be satisfied all the time because I don't see that as a solution.
Yeah. Or the solution is to deal with the fact that there's not an ultimate satisfaction and find ways of healthfully moving forward.
Right. I think, like we said, contentment is the best you can hope for.
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing. Pursuing things that you expect to solve your life. See, that's the thing, and that's the thing I think we both agree on, both from their mindset and ours. People like the lottery. People think, oh wow, everything's going to be great. Judge Judy, right? Everything's going to be great as soon as I get this or as soon as I do this. Yeah. And it's not. And then they're miserable because they think something's wrong with themselves or whatever. And it's like, well, I have everything. Why am I so... And yeah, so we can enter in with the wrong perspectives, but that does not mean therefore God.
Right. And
that's the problem I keep having. And you know what? That was exactly what I predicted on Facebook yesterday or this morning. I forget when I wrote it. Mm-hmm. That's what I predicted he was going to do. We can't be satisfied, therefore God. Therefore there's a God-shaped hole and only God can fill it. And and therefore, yeah, that points to a God.
I can remember looking at it and go, oh, he's gonna, because it talked about, what was it? Success
Can success truly satisfy?
Yeah. I was like, oh, he's going to talk about the God-shaped hole in our hearts.
Yep, he's going to do it, and he did. He did C.S. Lewis, and he even talked about Nietzsche.
Oh, God.
I love it when Christians bring up Nietzsche, and alt-writers and fundamentalists bring up Nietzsche as if that actually makes their point relevant. I mean, Nietzsche could say a lot about Christianity and religion and trying to satisfy your life with religion.
But the thing is like nihilism is like a deconstruction to build something up. So you kind of tear down the idea of having a purpose, life is meaningless. Well, the idea is that you'll find meaning. Once you realize life is meaningless, then you can find your true purpose. In other words, you have to find your purpose.
Right.
So it's you deconstruct something so you can build it back up.
Yeah, and but then you get the Betty Drapers of the world who want to have this thing that probably doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of like when Matt Dillahunty started saying when I was watching him, said, I want to believe as many true things as possible and as few false things as possible. And I was like, that's actually really, I agree with that. I want to believe that too. Well, how do we go about doing that? So then it really becomes a situation of, I want to be as satisfied as I can, but also not pursue things that are false promises of satisfaction.
Absolutely.
And so how do I go about doing that? And so I think it's very similar. It's like, well, let's not claim things that we aren't actually that aren't reasonable to believe in, including God. Let's make sure that we're not doing things that we can't look at and say like, yeah, that's a reasonable goal. That's not that's a reasonable thing, right? So I'm meeting with a dietitian right now because I need to lose weight. And I haven't been eating the best, obviously, because I had fast food.
No,
right? I haven't.
No.
But the thing is we're going to talk with each other about what goals I can hope to achieve, with this. And do I want a jacked body that'll make all the boys get down on their knees? By boys, I mean people who are 18 years old or older. Like, just like when guys in their late 20s and early 30s talk about the girls and getting girls, they're not talking about little girls. Would I
R. Kelly.
Do I want a body that'll make all the thirsty boys get on their knees and beg me? Yeah, I do. But at the same time, that's a lot to maintain. I don't have a lot of expectations of keeping that.
Analysis.
Is it a stretch goal? Maybe for a little bit, but
stretch goal.
But what I'm saying is I'm defining success in such a way that it is maintainable. Should be maintainable. And you can keep going with it, and you can keep doing things with it. Because like we said, once you're satisfied with money, once you're satisfied with food, you can do other things. Once I have a body where I can do stuff, I can go rock climbing on indoor rock climbing walls. So I think we've probably exhausted about all the time we can to talk on this.
Are you satisfied, Phil?
I am not, but I'm satisfied with leaving it as it is, which is pretty much what we're going to have to do. So next week we may probably not do much because we're not actually going to go to church. So we're going to probably wait to see what this next sermon is going to say, to see if we even want to say anything. But who knows? We may meet next week because there may be some stuff to talk about in Indiana. So,
oh yeah, there's always stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so we may have more stuff to go over. But we want to thank everyone for listening and giving us a listen and giving us a like. Share us with your friends. Comment, subscribe on things that if you didn't agree with something, and we'd love to hear from you. Anything else before we go, XRev?
I think I'm satisfied.
All right. Well,
I think I found that ultimate satisfaction.
Satisfaction. May all of you be satisfied. We're Honest to Goodness Atheists, folks. Honest to goodness. Have a good day.